Welcome back to the Wolf of Queen Street podcast series. Welcome back to the audio podcast or the video series. But before we get into today's episode, I just want to do a shout out to my sponsors, JobSearchQLD.com. JobSearch Queensland is a company helping people get the right skills to get in front of a job interview, or actually that next step of when they get that job interview, what they need to do, prepare to be able to give them the best step forward to be able to find that ideal job that they're looking for. And you can find them at JobSearchQLD.com. But today I'm joined by Remy, the co-chairman from RealT, a company I was told about a month ago. And I was told by a good friend of mine, Karen Goss, that's been on the show multiple times, and said, Lawrence, have a look at this company. Have a look at these guys. They are selling property overseas by being able to buy it as tokens on Ethereum by spending as little as $50 at a time to own a piece of property in America. And I was like, hold on, what's going on? How does that work? How is it possible that I can sit in New Zealand and buy a small piece of a property on the other side of the world for as little as $50? And I thought I would get into it. And then I reached out to Remy and I said to Remy, hey, Remy, why don't you come on the show so everyone that watches or listens can find out exactly about RealT and what they do. So here we are. Remy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lawrence, for having me.
So as I said, I was told about RealT about a month ago, and to find out that you guys are selling property in America at the moment, and it's as cheap as $50 as we call for a token. Remy, can you give the listeners or watchers at the moment an explanation is what is RealT at the moment?
First of all, it's not as cheap as $50, it's as accessible as $50.
Sorry, I don't want wrong terminology.
RealT is a fractionalized, tokenized real estate company.
Mm-hmm.
And RealT is also a protocol that will allow others to tokenize and fractionalize their property. We started operation in 2019. The concept came up in 2018. We incorporated in 2019. And since then, we have tokenized 96 property. Mm-hmm. 2 more are going up tomorrow, and next week our 100th property. Which is quite exciting and a milestone for RealT. Yep. The concept is very simple, is make real estate accessible to everyone on an equal footing. Yep. That you have $50 or $500,000, you get the same cap rate, the same investment opportunity. Historically speaking, getting into real estate has always been expensive. Mm-hmm. You've always needed to have contact at the bank to be able to get a mortgage. Yep. And we'll get into decentralized lending a little bit further in the podcast. But RealT is not only real estate, but a DeFi company that gives a life to a token that is backed by real estate.
Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. So you said, decentralized finance as accessible as $50. So, how does that all work? How does that process work for someone that's coming in that doesn't understand? So I'm a person that has no understanding of what tokenized property is, what decentralized finance is, but I'm interested because I want to own a piece of the property. What is that process and what does it look like?
The process is simple. You go on the site, you select the property that you like. Like I said, we have close to 100 properties now. Most of them are sold out. Yeah. But sometimes you'll have a chance to get some of the older properties as they come back. You select the property that you like, the yield, the look of the property. You do your investigation as a regular investor on the properties that are offered. And then you select the size of your investment. It could be $50, and that $50 will bring you the same cap rate, mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The same percentage ownership on the rent than your $50 allows you, of course, than somebody who invested $5,000 in the same property. Mm-hmm. The name of the game is passive income. We're not asking you to do anything. We have property managers who will manage the property. Managing a property in the US from New Zealand could be a little bit complicated. Yep. It's 5 a.m. for you. It's 1 p.m. for us, already a day behind. So it could make things a little bit more complicated. So we handle everything with third parties. You are the actual owner of the property. Mm-hmm. Not us. You own a direct share of that property, a direct ownership of this property through the LLC. Mm-hmm. LLC is a limited liability company, and that's what owns the asset, and you own part of that LLC.
So I just wanted to clarify that because that was one of the big questions I got. I was interested in, as well as people had asked me that I spoke about it. Is so what Remy said at the moment is the LLC owns the property, and you then own a portion of that LLC that owns that property.
That is absolutely correct.
So what happens is so as much as you own, normally you would own a title to your property. The company owns a title, and you own portion of the company. To explain that, because a lot of people have said to me, "Hey, Lawrence, great. Do I own the property? Can I if I own, $500,000 of the property, can I just walk up to it and look at it and go, hey, that's actually my property?" No, in principle you can't, because the company owns it, right? Saying you own that portion within that.
But you could go in front of this property and say you own this property because you own the company. Yep. There is very little commercial real estate investment done in the US in your own name. It's always done through companies. Mm-hmm. So it's not a new structure. It's something that has been used in the real estate world for hundreds of years now. Well, an LLC is a vehicle that's 50 years old, so for 50 years.
Yeah, so this is something that's still so new out there, Remy, at the moment, and so different. So you mentioned a term before, decentralized finance. I just wanted to come back to that sort of thing and clarify what that is to the audience, and then we can continue, just so that I don't want to leave that term out there. Can you explain to them as well, when you mentioned decentralized finance, what does that mean?
Sorry to interrupt the current show, but just to let you know, if you're enjoying what you've seen, make sure you hit the subscribe and like button. So next time another episode comes out, you'll be able to see it first. Back to the show.
Let me give you a concrete example that's going to be available on RealT, hopefully in the next 30 to 45 days. You are an owner of house Marlow. Marlow is our first property that we sold, so it has a special place in our heart. You own $1,000 of Marlow. You desire to get a loan. If you were to get a loan on your property today, and I'm not sure how it works in New Zealand, but in the US, you would need to go to the bank, show who you are, show your financial statements, a property condition reports, income statement of the property, and then the bank will take 45 days for you to be approved for your loan. Today, you could go on the decentralized finance protocols. So you have many different protocols. You have the DEX, which are the decentralized exchange, where you have liquidity for a property. And RealT, one of the big advantage of RealT is you could buy a property on Monday, collect rent Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and sell it on Friday. As well as a loan. You could go on one of those protocols, deposit your token, and get a 50% loan to value on the value of your token within a matter of a minute. It is a smart contract that executes itself. There is no more bank in the middle. So the centralization of finance has been broken out. You don't need a broker dealer to do exchanges. You go on a decentralized exchange. You don't need a bank to give you a loan. You go on a decentralized lending platform. And there is decentralized insurances. It is a fast growing space where it's been written, history is being written as we advance.
It totally is, I must say. So just to anyone out there, just to let you know, currently I've invested, I believe I've got tokens in about 4 different properties since I've joined in the last month. I missed out on one of the ones this week. As Remy says, they sell out really quickly. When I talk about really quickly, I'm talking about some of them sell out in can be minutes and they're gone. Doesn't mean that is not going to be more available a week later. Like you said, there's a couple going out, so I'll pay attention to those. But what was, as you said, with decentralized finance and removing that whole process, the craziness was, I go onto the website, I see the property, it has the full spec, it has all the details, the rents, what is happening, the return, what does it mean to me as an investor. So I do all my research, I see everything there. And there's pretty much a button goes, cool, I want to buy 1 token or 2 tokens, right? And it has a value for that token. You pretty much click it, you submit it. Now, one thing to pay attention is you can either buy your token with digital currency, or you can buy your token with actual credit card or cash, or so from your account. So you don't have to have digital currency to get started. You can actually bring your own cash to the table and buy your 1 token, 10 tokens, 50 tokens, depending on your budget. And that's the way I did it. But going through that process, I then clicked, got my, it said, okay, how many tokens I wanted to get. You get your smart contract. And within, I would say, 5 or 10 minutes of this process, getting my smart contract, completing it, doing online, it was completed. And then within a period of time, a very short period of time afterwards, it was completed, tokens were issued, and I then owned my tokens within that property. It could have been maybe a couple hours in the total process, and only about 5 minutes of my time to actually go through and now say, I own a piece of property in America on the other side that, to people like them, is giving me, I think it's 10.9 to about 11.5 is the average gross yield on these properties at the moment. So pretty good return for me, only really need to go in at $50 a token each time. So,
it is the, go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry, go Remy.
No, go ahead.
So yeah, so one thing as well that has come up and people have asked me at the moment and I've spoken about it is they go, okay, great. So I can buy the token. Like I said, I can buy it either through digital currency or through my own money up front. Is once I've got this token, how do I sell it? What do I do with it now?
So you have a few choices on how to sell it. The first choice is you could sell it back to RealT. We're always happy to buy back your tokens at any time. The second option is you go on LevinSwap or on Uniswap, which are two decentralized exchange. One is on Ethereum. The other one is on a side chain, an L2, which is called the XDAI. So you could go on those two decentralized exchange and be able to exchange your token at any time. The third option is you go on a peer-to-peer exchanges like Swapcat, or you go on the community dashboard of RealT that was built by community members for the community, where you have the same ability as Swapcat, and you could sell your token between token holders.
Right. So one thing I just wanted to point out to clarify. So when I sell it back to RealT, you've got a policy, right? It's bought back at the price that the token was valued at the last valuation. Is that not correct?
That's correct. RealT buys back the token at the price of the appraisal that is done once a year.
So, yeah. Appraisal, as Americans would call valuations in New Zealand. So there we go, two different. Yes. So, but when you go to the exchange or when you go to the community board, that price could vary, right? Because that's person to person. That's me and someone else publicly, and he might say, "Hey, I'm selling my tokens. I bought it at 50, but I want to sell it at 100." Not saying that someone's going to go as high as doubling their token, but I might say, okay, I actually want those tokens in that property. And then we have a process of getting to a value and then I'm buying it off him. So he could make 10%, 20% on top of his token compared to where RealT just buy back at the set price.
That is correct. Yes.
So you talked about, talk about this LevinSwap over there on that side of selling it on that side. What else can I do with my token? What else, if I've got a token, what else can I do with it other than wait there and get my rent or sell it? Is there any other options for me to do with that token in that property?
Well, right now it's already good to be able to collect rent every day.
Yep.
But yes, you have other applications. More and more are coming. You could deposit this token on LevinSwap for some farming as well, where you get you participate in the farming. Which is a decentralized finance term on the way of utilization of your token. I'm not even sure how to compare it to a regular real world financial vehicle, but you could do farming. Very soon you're going to be able to borrow against your token. And of course, this token brings you rent, passive income. And the longer you hold the token, the more token you hold, the more governance token you will have of RealT, because our protocol is coming out very soon as well with our governance token. We have issued now the Soon token for all the property owners of the old property. The Soon token is a claim to your RealT token, governance token that are coming out shortly. Coming out soon.
Okay. So a couple of things just to go through there, because I want to make sure I keep going back and doing some clarification, because even myself that understands a bit of digital currency and in this, some of this stuff is still new to me. So I know my audience will be going, great, but hold on, what does that mean? For the person that does understand digital currency. So you talked about going over to LevinSwap for farming. Can you clarify more to it? Is what does farming actually mean at the moment around my token? What is the process? Why would I do it? And what do I get back for it?
So first of all, do it at your own risk. It's not a financial advice, but farming is a way for you to deposit your real token along some Levin token on Levin swap. And over a period of time, for contributing to the liquidity, you receive rewards in Levin token. There is, of course, impermanent loss that happens on every single decentralized exchange. So you could end up with more Levin, less real tokens, or more real token, less Levin, depending on the demand and the market algorithms. So there is some risk associated to it, but the rewards is paid in the native currency of the exchange that offers the farming.
So is that sort of me giving my money onto the exchange as a loan for someone else or the protocol down the path?
You're putting your asset as a collateral against the same asset that is rewarded to you to be able to create some liquidity, and that gives you a reward.
Okay, so liquidity to who though? So who's taking that liquidity or who's using that liquidity?
So the whole decentralized exchange uses that liquidity. It could be liquidity in Levin, it could be liquidity in RealToken and property 1, 2, 3, 4, or it could be liquidity in a USDC that you provide to the exchange. So, and that's why you are rewarded to be part of this ecosystem.
Okay, so you're putting it in there, but as you said, one thing is every time you do any exchange, any exchange in digital currency, there's a bit of a clip of the ticket. So as much as we remove the middleman in this process of digital currency across the board, every time you buy and sell or you transfer, there is a small clip of the ticket. Sometimes it can be cents, sometimes it could be dollars as well.
It depends on the slippage. It depends on how the exchange is set up and how you set up your settings on your own wallet to control slippage. But yes, the middleman is removed, but there is also the price of transactions. If you do a swap right now on Ethereum, it could get quite expensive. On XDAI, it is pennies, but the slippage is still a possibility.
So that's sort of just one thing to pay attention. If you're looking down this path of farming with your tokens, is if I put it in there, then I take it out, and I put it in there, and I take it out. Every time I'm doing that, I'm losing a very small portion of it. And that's where Remy said that sometimes you can have a reduced, if your value could have reduced in one instance because I've put it in there for a very short time, but I might have been paid back in the as the payment from the exchange that I'm sitting on as well. So that's the sort of stuff just to pay attention to with that. So Remy, talk me through that. You talk about a governance token. So I own my token in my property at the moment, and our RealT's just recently announced this governance token. What actually is that?
So the governance token is related to the RealT protocol. The RealT protocol will enable anyone around the world to be able to use RealT, use the marketplace, put your property for sale, and be able to interact with the ecosystem. Of course, there is due diligence check that needs to go through. We don't just check the property to make sure that the property that is for sale actually has a roof. We check the seller, the track record, and we make sure that everything is above and beyond for people to be able to interact on the protocol. So that's number one. Number two, there will be voting rights. So people will vote on selling a property, raising rent, paint color, renovation, so on. And I'm just giving an example. It's going to be, as time goes on, the governance votes will build up as well to many different aspects, because real estate is the core of the business for the protocol, but there is all the other businesses around it, from the evaluator, like you call it in New Zealand, to the notaries, to the lawyers, the handyman, the paint company, the insurance brokers. Everybody has a place within the real estate ecosystem. And RealT is opening up the protocol for everyone to be able to interact in one single place for tokenized real estate.
That's great. So do I get a governance token per every token I own, or do I get one token for every property I invest in?
Good question. So the way the governance token works is RealT charge a fee of 10% of the raise. That's how we pay the bills and keep the lights on. if we were to, and when you sell a token back to RealT, we buy back this 10% automatically. And that's the only way to have a liquid market. Because if you bought a property for $10 and you had $1 of fee, and then you want to resell this property for $9 the next day, you're going to lose. Even though the rent comes in every day, you will need a period of time. So at the beginning, RealT buys back this 10% for the first year until the first evaluation. At the time of the first evaluation, upwards, downwards, or neutral, RealT takes out this 10% out of the price of the token and issues in exchange some RealToken, some governance token from RealT. That governance token is that holding period between the first time you buy to the time of the evaluation, plus the amount that you own will decide how many tokens you will be rewarded for your participation to the protocol. And that's one of the only ways to be able to mint RealTokens, RealT governance tokens.
Right. So you work it out at a value based, and I'm guessing the team at RealT works out going, we're going to have a dollar value of how many governance tokens. So if you've got, $500 worth, it means this from a token point of view. If you've got $5,000, then that's 10 times more from a governance token point of view.
As well as how long you hold it. Time is a very important factor.
Okay, so everyone that's in at the beginning, well, it's not the beginning right now. We're almost going to 100 houses, but everyone that's still in the early stages now, as the future's going ahead, you have some very big voting rights in a few years' time. So you mentioned there, as in the governance token to the protocol to allow the people to do it outside in the world. Another question that came across my table in the last week was, how do you pick houses? Firstly, what's the process of RealT finding houses? And then what's the process of getting that property, or once you find the house, to get that property under RealT? I mean, normally, if I wanted to go find a house, I go do my research, as everyone does in the world. I go, okay, this property right there looks like a great real estate investment. It's multiple doors. The gross yield is great. I purchased that, and go from there. But how do you go through that process, and then how do you bring it on under this company and into this sort of future way of buying property?
So it's a lot of work behind it, to be honest. We have been in real estate most of our lives. Real estate investment and development is my brother and I's business. We founded RealT together. Been in the crypto space for quite a while as well, for almost 9 years now. But on the searching of the property, we have different steps. First, you don't start with the property, but you start with identifying the city. From the city, you identify the neighborhood. Once you have identified the neighborhood, you go to the city hall, and we look at something called CIP in the US, which is Capital Improvement Planning, which will give you the 2 years, 5 years, 10 years plan of investment of the city for this neighborhood. So you look at if it's infrastructure spending, if it is wiring, electrical spending, or is it parks embellishment? What is going to happen in the near, medium, and long future of this neighborhood? That will, first of all, give you a target market of where you want to buy. Because as much as we look for stable income, we like to know that the areas where we choose our properties have an upside throughout the time. As real estate is and always will be a long-term investment, it doesn't mean it needs to be a long-term hold.
Yep.
And that's what we changed. So that's our step one. Step two is identifying the property. Once we go through the properties that are on market, off market, and doing our work of searching the properties, we will start negotiating the purchase of the property. This includes a full inspection on titles, full inspection on the property condition reports, to know where we stand, what needs to be done. And then the third step is the inspection on the tenant. In the USA, we have a program called Section 8, which is subsidized living. Section 8 pays a part or full amount of the rent, depending on the family and economical situation of the tenant. So the vouchers change between 50% usually up to 100%. And so we look at those vouchers. We look at the financial situation of the tenant. We see if the tenant is a professional mover. It goes from houses to houses, then we don't want this property. If the tenant has been a long-standing in the house, it's something very interesting. And we go through all those checklists that we have. At that point, we bring on the property to the platform and offer it to our investors, to our token holders, at the per plate as any other investor. $50 or $500,000 investor have the same right.
No, it's great. To see that process that goes through and understanding that, and I was just listening to how Remy was explaining it, to how they look at property, and it's a really good way to do it. Obviously, New Zealand, we're not as big as over in the States. I mean, we're only 5 million people. We're the size of a small US city. But I love the way of him saying we go down to the town hall and we look at what the future planning is and the future development. Very similar to what some of the big investors in New Zealand will look into is what is the future been done in this, what has been done in this area for the future. So you know that in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, there's money being spent and your value in your property will increase. So yeah, but Remy, a big thing is, so you get this property, you offer it to all of us across RealT. How secure is RealT? How safe is RealT as a company? So I buy my tokens through RealT at the moment, and as with anything else, people are going, but hold on, it's a company. I'm buying tokens in a company that owns the property. No. Is that secure? What happens if the company falls over?
Each property has its own company, so it is not no properties are intertwined whatsoever. They all stand alone. So of course, if a property doesn't get rent, you're not going to get rent. There is no guarantees. It is real landlord experience. If there is something to fix, you're going to know about it, and rent will be deferred because there is the money needs to be towards the fixing of the plumbing. So that's number one. Number two, RealT itself is a company. RealT could go, I don't like to speak like that, but RealT could go under at any time in the future. It is absolutely irrelevant. You own the property. The protocol will decide on who the manager is, on who will be the property manager, and the governance is in charge of all the decision. The idea is not to have to rely on one person or on a team. It's to rely on a community, to work together, to be able to take the decision for your assets. And like I said, each asset stands alone within the ecosystem, but it stands completely alone. And it is important to note there is no financing on all the assets. They're bought cash. So chances of anything going bad when you own the property, as long as the tax are paid, very little.
No, that's great. That's great. That you said that and made that clear as well. So another thing is, can anyone get into this? Like, so you guys are doing this now in America. Can anyone do that and set sort of a company up in this way? Or is it, because people are going to go, great, RealT's doing it. Why don't I do it? Why doesn't someone else look into it?
Please join us. Please come and join us. Use our technology. The protocol will be live soon. And we welcome you to use what we've built and come and do it with us. No need to reinvent the wheel. Every piece is here. So we're looking forward for people to start tokenizing properties in their own country and their own cities. We cannot be experts in real estate all around the world. I wouldn't know where to start in New Zealand, but I know I have the technology for you to be able to do the same thing with a very few parameters to change to be compliant under New Zealand law.
Yeah, so that's so true, right? If you've got the technology at the moment. So let's continue on that one, right? If I'm interested, do I reach out to you and go, hey Remy, because I mean I'm an investor, I've got friends that are investors and stuff like that, and they might go, well, this might be an interesting way for me to sell my property, right? Do we reach out to yourself at RealT and go, hey, we've got a property here that we want to bring on under RealT, and then you take us through that whole process?
Today, yes. In the very near future, no. You will go through everything online. You will submit your due diligence package. It will go through the governance, and you will be approved or disapproved for selling your property. But today, if you have a property that is interesting and that you want to tokenize, please reach me on the platform or on my email or on social media. I'm always available and happy to answer.
So we've covered off, Remy, pretty much the whole process of, buying the token in the property, where the token sits, who owns it, myself being able to get the rent, being able to farm with the token, to the whole process of how you finding it, is it secure, and so forth. So that whole sort of life cycle of the property and the investment. One thing I want to know is, and it's a question even from me personally, is what's the future for RealT? What's the next steps? Is it going to be like this the same way for the next 6 or 9 months? Or is there a future path that you are aware of that you're going to be offering to people out there? Because we are talking about Ethereum and digital currency and technology that's so futuristic to a lot of people that there's almost an expectation that this is how it is today. In 6 months' time, it's going to be totally different because it's so changing the world.
We are working on a lot of things. Our development team grew, doubled over the last months, and we're still actively hiring. RealT is evolving on a daily basis. So is the DeFi space. So 6 months down the road in DeFi is really 4 years or 5 years in the real world. Nobody has a crystal ball, but yes, we have a lot of implementation coming, a lot of partnership coming for RealT that makes it very exciting. But unfortunately, I cannot spill the beans right now here.
No, that's fine. I know the big one that you're talking, the big the ones that I saw myself was the governance tokens that's coming across there at the moment. And also
that opens up a world of opportunities for RealT on what to be able to do and how the token and tokens will be interacted with.
Yep. And then obviously opening up, the protocol so that anyone else like myself, if I wanted to, can offer a property to put on there as well. So that's sort of the big things that I've seen in the last, I've only been an investor maybe a month, maybe 5 weeks at the moment on that sort of stuff. And I can see how fast track and how fast moving it is at the moment. But anyway, Remy, was there anything else? We've covered off so much already. Is there anything else you want to leave our listeners or watchers with to around RealT, around this process we didn't cover off?
I think we covered quite a bit of RealT. We're looking forward to expand into New Zealand, into Australia, and we're looking forward to having sponsor reaching out to us to offer property in your geographical location, as our mission is to tokenize real estate throughout the world.
No, there's definitely interest in around that, Remy. I was speaking to someone the other day as well, and they're like, how do we do it in New Zealand? Or it's not about how we do it to get it onto the exchange. I mean, RealT does that, offers the technology to be able to do it, but it's how do we do it from a paper system? Do I put it under a company and then I pass it over to RealT? And that's the sort of stuff that I think each country has to figure out. And once you've got that first one, right? Once you've done the first one in the country, everyone just follows that process.
Correct. And each country is different. I think that tokenizing the company is something that is going to change slowly throughout the years as land registry goes on blockchain. And in this case, it will make it much easier to tokenize the property directly. But until this happens, we have to work with the rules and regulation of every country. So legal advice is a must to start.
Totally at the moment. I mean, in New Zealand, our property market at the moment is crazy. It's going so sky high. They can't control it. They're trying to bring in rules every other week to try and slow it down from an investment point of view, because the growth has just been manic. But let's see what happens. I'm really interested in this, and like I said, but to anyone else at the moment, Remy, can you let them know? So if they're interested, they want to look at more, they want to see what's next coming up on the marketplace, where do they go? Where do they find out the information around RealT? What's the first step for them?
Follow us on Telegram, RealT platform. Follow us on Twitter. You will get all the announcements, and sign up for the newsletter to be kept up to date with everything that we're changing and developing in RealT.
Great. Also, one thing I didn't cover off, and when we're talking about it, is obviously when I purchase the property, I get a rent back from it. RealT offers two things around that rent, so we didn't cover off, and I was going to go at the moment, and I'll allow you, Remy, to explain this. You allow two things to be to work with that rent. I either get the rent back in a value to myself on the exchange in the on Ethereum protocol, or actually allow me to reinvest it around there as well. So can you talk me through that, Remy?
So the two ways of you to get rent is to get your cash in your wallet directly, the address you provide during your KYC, and your rent will be deposited. Or you could do a compounding effect, which is what real estate is really all about. You get rent money in, you reinvest it to buy another property. And that's what we have offered with the reinvestment property that is only purchasable with rent dollars. So you need to be a token holder, you need to be collecting rent to be able to buy this property.
Yep, and I can just explain it from my side is I got offered a reinvestment property. So this house, property A, is now available for reinvestment. So I go in and say, yes, I wanted to select that property. So I got given rent, you know, for my token values, whatever value comes in. So if I get $5 rent, $500, whatever it is, so then it goes straight back to the value of that token. So I then get issued one token, 0.1 of a token, whatever, a reinvestment. But what actually happens as well, and it's clarified through the process, is you can reinvest in that property as long as there's available tokens. So as long as there's still available to buy in that property, you can reinvest. Once that closes or there's no more tokens, there becomes a new reinvestment property. So this has happened to me in the last month. I've had 2 different reinvestment properties. There's no issues with it. And from my side, personally, I'm like, this is cool because I'm buying up front property 1, 2, and 3. My reinvestment is giving me property 4, 5, and 6. So just through the process, my portfolio just gets wider from a property asset holding or token holding without me having to go and do it differently because the reinvestment puts me in different spaces all the time.
That is right.
Yeah, and it's I must say it's quite fun as well through this process, Remy, because like I said, it's getting actually into property that people throughout the world struggle with, and like we said, it's so accessible at $50 to get into the token. You know, I look at it and you can go, depending on your situation, I can go, okay, this month I'm going to do one $50 token. Next month I'm going to do another one $50 token, and there's nothing crazy. Now when we talk about $50, I think it varies between about 50, 53, 52. It's around there within about 10%, and it varies because of the price of the property and depend on the contract as well. But it's around that sort of area, and it's so fun to get into something for so little, but still get all the benefits as if I'm owning $1 million property. I still get 11% gross yield, or the gross yield out of it. I still get the rent paid to me. I still be able to reinvest it. I still able to sell it if I sell it to someone publicly and make a couple of dollars on it, maybe 5% or 10%, or have the security to sell it straight back to RealT for the value I bought it at. So it's so cool and fun and exciting from a simple way of investing.
Thank you very much.
So Remy, before we end off the show today, is there anything else? I know we've covered most of it off. Is there anything last you can think about to leave our audience with? And if there's not as well, can you just let us know where they can find you? I mean, I know you talked about Telegram or Twitter. Is there any other sort of social media handles or so forth you want to tell them so they can find you?
Telegram, Twitter, Discord. We're available on all of the above. And my email is on the website. Please feel free to email me directly if you have any questions. We're always happy to answer, and the community on Telegram will answer a lot of your questions as well.
So how big, I think there was an announcement the other day, I just wanted to ask this, how big has the community come? I know you're going to, I think 100, close to, you just said you're coming up to 100 houses. I'm sure when we spoke the other day, you talked about how big this community under RealT is.
Right now is, as of yesterday, 13,600 and something KYC'd and token holders.
So
and growing.
Yeah, so just under 14. So as much as it's still pretty new out there, it's growing, and I can imagine Remy can see quite a large growth of token holders month to month and so forth. So it's new technology. It's not new technology, but it's a new way of doing it. But we are step 1, step 2 in this future process. Just to people out there at the moment, think about it, and I want to leave you this nugget at the end of it. Think about it if someone said to you, hey, do you want to get involved into Bitcoin in the first 6 months? And you go, nah, I'll wait later. This is where in DeFi and tokenized property space, this is where this is sitting. This is sitting in that sense that in 5 years' time, you should have gone, I should have been there. I should have been at that moment, even got my hands on 1 or 2 or 3 tokens, and then let it get my gross yield, get my reinvestment, that in 5 years' time, I can say I was on day 1 on that. And this is the way I see it. And that's why every time at the moment, as soon as I get the email from RealT and goes, hey, there's a new property tomorrow, or there's a new property next week, if I can, I'll go buy as little as 1 token, just that I have a token that property. I'll widen my base of properties throughout there, because it goes into different cities as well, so that I know that down the path, it'll be so much more beneficial for myself.
I'll check your emails in an hour and a half.
Yeah, so that's I've got to go check what's popping up again. So, but Remy, thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, it's amazing from my side. It's amazing that you were willing to come on there. You're such a big company overseas with what you're doing and offering out there. And as I said, there's so many people in the New Zealand market as well, in the Australian market, that are in the investment game. But there's also a lot of people that want to get into it, are interested in it, and have no idea, you know, what other options they have. Because in the New Zealand market, for example, the average house price is $1 million in the country, you know, and the average income, I think, is $60,000, something. So it's like 16 times the average income gets you the average house. So it's not something affordable in most areas. So people go, I want to get into it, but I just don't have a large cash, as well as you require a 20% deposit in this country. So if you buy a $1 million property, you need $200,000 cash in the bank to buy a house. So why not buy a property for $50? Why not buy 5 properties for $250? And as in a portion of it, if you think of it in that sense. So I'll leave that to the listeners and watchers with today to think about, where do you want to spend that money to be able to actually own property overseas, gives you all those returns without the stress, the worries of having to find 50, 100, hundreds of thousands of dollars out there. And the technology is there. I use it. A whole lot of my friends are already buying it and have it. And I'm excited to see what's in the future. But again, Remy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I hope everyone enjoyed that. If there's any questions or queries, I know there'll be people out there that's going, I'm a little bit confused. I don't understand DeFi. I don't understand tokenized property. Drop the comment or send me a message, depending on where you're listening or watching at the moment. I'll reach out to Remy and I'll go, Remy, here's a couple more of the questions, and I'll come back to you to clarify that sort of stuff.
We'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for having me, Lawrence. It was great to be on your show.
Awesome. And as always out there, make sure, you know, we stay safe out there. Make sure we help each other out as much as we can. This is sort of a space that I think that people can feel value, people can get involved in, people can actually change and make their lives different in small portions across us, and the technology that's underneath us. But as always, stay beautiful, stay powerful. Until next time, see ya.